Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I am delighted to be here and scared to death. You know, I teach a class to undergraduate students on, it's an honors course, and it's speaking in the 21st century, trying to help these young women find their voices so that they can go out into the world and speak powerfully with truth and passion. And I said to them in class on Wednesday that the hardest thing that they will have to do is when they speak in front of each other, right? There's something about speaking to strangers that's so much easier than speaking to family and friends. It just makes you more nervous. Give me a room of 5,000 people, which I've done. I'm cool. People go, are you nervous? Nah, I don't know these people. It works or it doesn't work. I don't really care. But I know you. This is family. This is what happens when you come home to talk to family. This is like when you go to give a toast at a wedding, or you go to give the eulogy for a family member, or any of that kind of stuff. It's more intimate, right? And so I'm going to ask you to bear with me as I work through my small amount of nerves. It was more than that when I was being introduced, which is the most painful process that one goes through, and I always say to people whenever they give that introduction, or it goes on and on and on, that's the introduction that my parents gave everything for, right? That's what they gave everything for, was to be able to have their baby up in front and people saying nice things about something that he's done right, rather than the things they could have said about me that they knew that I didn't do right. So let us begin. May the words of my mouth and this meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, Lord, my rock and my redeemer. You know, there is a truth that cannot be scripted. It cannot be rehearsed. It cannot be downloaded and delivered on cue. It must be lived into. This week, last Sunday, my heat went out across the street, the boiler. For some reason, initially it was a part, then it was the boiler, then it was this, and all I could think was, this is why I rent. It wasn't my problem. When the landlord said, oh, we'll get a plumber there on Sunday, if I'd owned it, I would have been going time and a half. This can wait until Monday. I'll get a blanket. I'll warm up. But the plumber came, and so I went until yesterday with no heat. And it's been really interesting to be in a place where on the coldest week of the year, you're cold. And there weren't a lot of things to do to get warm. And I was resisting turning on the oven because that went back too old school in some ways. And it was an electric oven, and I don't trust electric ovens to leave on like that. And so they brought in heaters, and it's Sunday. I'm getting all ready for the Super Bowl. And I turn on one heater in the kitchen. I turn on the other heater in the living room, and it takes out the fuse. Everything goes out. And I thought, okay, so I've got to do one thing here, one thing there. So what this means is I just have to negotiate being warm. And then I thought, well, I can go to the Sheraton, or I can go to one of the guest houses around the corner. I can do this, I can do that. I have options. I have friends that would, numbers of them, who would say, I have an extra room. In this market, to have an extra room that you don't need tells you about privilege. And the numbers of people who were saying to me, I've got an extra room if you want to come stay at my house. And I think, well, I could do that, but then I've got to talk to you. No, I'm just telling the truth. I got to get up when you get up. I got to go to bed when you go to bed. Some days I come home, I'm beat. I just want to go to bed, have a piece of toast, and call it a day. And now I'd have to be engaging. Nah, sis, I ain't doing that. But what it reminded me was, I have options. I have options. This week would have been my mother's 110th birthday. 110, born 1916. And I've been thinking, my father's born 1919. I'm definitely not that old. We were born very late. But in Cedartown, Georgia, which is where she was from, and in Leeton, Alabama, they knew what it was to be cold with no options. You know, they knew what it meant to get up and go out into an outhouse, because that was what they had to do, whether it was snowing or not. And so the privilege that I have is something that I've been reminded of. And so this sermon looks at transfiguration as a way of evolution. the way in which we evolved, the way in which I've evolved, the way in which I had to be reminded this week to be grateful. Not only for what I have, but then to be observant of what other people don't have, right? To see what other people don't have and go through every day. When it's too hot, when it's too cold, when it's too wet, they don't have options. I can get out of the cold, I can get out of the rain, I can get out of the heat because I have options. As we look at this Centennial Black History Month, we really have to think about, we stand on the legacy of people who haven't had options, right? You know, the great trumpeter Wynton Marsalis tells us about jazz, that jazz is the power of now. There's no script. You know, if you go to jazz performers will tell you, I do it differently every day because of what comes to me makes it sound different every day. There's no safety net. There is no safety net. It's just a conversation. Musicians listening so deeply to one another. Jazz requires the musicians to listen to each other and to listen to the instruments and to listen to that combination of their instruments, their talent, their experience, all coming together to make a moment. So if you go to a jazz concert, you go, oh, well, they didn't play it the same way they played it last night. There's a reason that they didn't do it the same way they did it on the album or the show you saw last time or this or that, because it is spontaneous and improvisational. They respond in a split second to what the moment requires. Jazz does not deny the past. Jazz does not wait politely for the future. Jazz stands in the burning present and tells the truth. Miles Davis wasn't playing when he turned his back on the audience and decided not to pay attention to them. That if you don't like what I'm doing, Nina Simone, who went to the Newport Jazz Festival, played 2 songs, got up and walked off. And the person who was the MC that day said 2 songs from Nina Simone are better than a whole set from anybody else. Jazz stands in the burning present, tells the truth, and that, church, sounds like faith to me. Faith is not a script. Faith is a conversation. Faith is a call and a response. Faith is listening for God in the noise, listening for God in the grief, listening for God in the joy, listening for God when the score is unfinished and the next note has not yet been revealed. So as I was thinking, I thought about John 2, verses 3 through 5, the wedding at Cana. So stay with me on how I'm pulling these pieces together, because why would you go from Transfiguration to the wedding? There's a reason. This is recorded at that wedding as Jesus' first public miracle. It occurs at the very beginning, and the story goes that when the wine ran out, Mary, being a mother, said to Jesus, they have no wine. Inherent in that is they didn't plan well, but they have no wine. Truth be told, she's the first Jewish mother, so she is saying they did not plan well, penultimate Jewish mother. And Jesus said to her, woman, what does this have to do with me? Now, after he got up off the floor for saying woman to his mother, which was his kind of G-ma moment, he said to her, my hour has not come yet. So you want me to do something? You know I can do it, but I'm not ready yet. I have not been made who I'm going to fully be. But that didn't stop Mary. Unlike so many mothers who think that their child, especially their sons, are special, Mary knows that her son is indeed special. And so she says to the servants, ignoring Jesus, do whatever he tells you. Listen to him. So in Matthew 17, verses 1 through 9, it tells us how later on the Mount of Transfiguration, not the same day, but as part of this process and this journey, Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up high. And suddenly, there's light, glory. Moses and Elijah appear alongside Jesus, speaking to him about his upcoming exodus, his passion, and his death. They see what's coming, and they're letting him know the process that he's going to go through. The Transfiguration serves as a foretaste of Jesus' resurrection glory and a glimpse of the divine nature hidden within his humanity. The past and the promise converging into one radiant now. But this is where you want to listen to where the story from Canaan fits this story from Transfiguration. Peter, good old Peter, overwhelmed and frightened, always overwhelmed and frightened, and not knowing what to say. So Peter decides, I want to build tents. Let me build tents. I want to freeze the moment. Let me capture and make this a Polaroid moment so we can all remember it. Peter wants to turn revelation into real estate. But before Peter can finish speaking, a cloud overshadows him and God's voice declares, "This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him." Interesting how both mother and father say, listen to him. Listen. Hey, listen. I'm an academic scholar. I did a little work. And truth be told, may have read it in a foreign language, but let's not go there. Listen to him. Listen, not build, not contain, not control, listen. Because revelation is not a monument, it is music, it is movement, it is a moment. And when the disciples fall down in terror, Jesus touches them and says, "Get up, don't be afraid." And I say to us, get up, don't be afraid. The mountain is not the end of the song. This moment is not the end of our song. They must go back down the mountain because faith, like jazz, lives in the valley as much as in the height. It lives where suffering and hope meet. It lives where the blues bends the note but refuses to break. James Baldwin, in his talks about the blues and says that it's never simple. It's joyful and sorrowful at the same time. It is tart, ironic, double-edged. It comes from people who have been down the line, people who have walked through the fire and yet learned how to sing. Only those who have been down the line know how that music is made. Uncle Jimmy warns us that the great temptation is to flatten life, to say happy songs are happy and sad songs are sad, to sanitize suffering, to deny history, to eat what he called foam rubber bread instead of the real thing. But to the fully alive, fully present, this is holy work. Ellington said, "Man prays to God in his own language, and there is no language God does not understand." Not the language of the blues, not the language of lament, not the language of protest, not the language of gratitude whispered through tears. God understands the language of the enslaved, those who were stripped of name and nation in the Atlantic slave trade, those who were told they had no history, no culture, no future. And yet they made rhythm out of ruin, harmony out of horror, testimony out of time. Baldwin tells us that whoever cannot face this history can never pay the price for the beat, which is why the key to music and the key to life, fact, you cannot love the rhythm and deny the story. Truth, you cannot dance to the song and ignore the sorrow. Reality, you cannot claim the beauty and erase the blood. The beat is the confession. I used to wonder, and if any of you have ever watched people who I would argue don't know how to clap. I'm not going to name names. But we've all been in rooms where you watch and you wonder, what beat are you hearing? What beat are you hearing? And what happens is when we're watching that beat, it throws the rest of us who are on beat off, because we get so caught up in watching the dissonance of what's occurring. But I would argue that what's missing is the beat, is the fact that there's not been truth that helps them to connect to the beat. If indeed what you have created is a false narrative, about why things are the way they are. If at this moment in time you look at what's going on in this country with the rise of white supremacy and you look around and you're surprised, you missed the beat. Music is our witness and our ally, Baldwin says. The beat recognizes time, it changes time, it conquers time. And when history is no longer a cloak to hide in, it becomes a garment we can wear and we can share. And when history becomes a garment instead of a hiding place, time becomes a friend. Deuteronomy 6:10-12 reminds us that, beloved, we build on foundations we did not lay. We warm ourselves by fires we did not light. We sit in the shade of trees we did not plant. We drink from the wells we did not dig. We profit from persons we did not know. And in part, this is as it should be. Together, we are more than any person could be. Together, we can build across generations. Together, we can renew our hope and faith in the life that is yet to unfold. Together, we can heed the call to a ministry of care and justice. May it always be so. So the question is not whether we are blessed. The question is, will we metabolize the blessing? Will we let it burn as fuel for justice? Will we be careful that we do not forget the Lord who brought us out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery? I'm a great fan of the Bengali poet Rabindranath Tagore, and he writes that one who plants trees, knowing he will never sit in their shade, has at least started to understand the meaning of life. I know that I, like so many of you, stand on the shoulders of giants. Union Church in this parish stands on the shoulders of giants too. We feast at tables prepared by our ancestors who survived what should have destroyed them. On mothers and fathers who made a way where there was no way. On preachers and teachers who practiced what Paulo Freire called armed love, a love that is joyful and rigorous, scientific and tender, courageous enough to try 1,000 times before giving up. That kind of love is not sentimental. It is disciplined, it is embodied, it is fierce. Love is not comfortable, love is truthful, and truth has rhythm. Somewhere at the intersection of joy and fear, mystery and insight lies awe. That trembling awareness that we are standing in something larger than ourselves. Psychologist Dasher Keltner suggests that awe pushes us beyond self-interest. It humbles us. It rewires us for good. I believe the disciples felt that on the mountain. Their experience of awe was overwhelming, surprising, and terrifying, all at the same time. But I also think that they had a song in their heart. Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the world thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. We feel awe when the music swells, when history breaks open, when grace interrupts our routine. Awe is what happens when heaven improvises. And the Spirit is still improvising, still calling us to listen, still inviting us to respond, still asking us to descend the mountain and carry the light onto ordinary streets. You know, Jilly from Philly. See that leap? I might keep my head in books, but I keep it real. Jilly from Philly, Miss Jill Scott to you, has released her first studio album in 10 years. To whom it may concern, I have already worn it out. It has a song, Off the Back, where in a riff she celebrates some of the ancestors. Bill Drummond, Lonnie Birch, Marian Anderson, Ella Baker, Frankie Beverly, Sarah Vaughan, Tina Turner, Nina Simone, and Billie Holiday. And the riff goes like this. On this fine day, I can go to the bookstore, buy a book, Bill Drummond, and read it. I can go around the world traveling and see some beautiful things, Uncle Lonnie, when they said I was only dreaming. I can sing diverse music to a diverse audience, Marian, in a diverse seating. Might not equate too much to some, but Nina, I'm grateful to all the pioneers who stood up for freedom, Ella, and its meaning. Thankful for everyone who came through the back doors, Frankie, rode the backwoods bus through the imminent danger, Sarah. They did it for themselves, Tina, but ultimately, Billy, they did it for us. Thank you, all because of you, all because of you. She says it may not equate too much to some, but we know. The principle of Sankofa that comes from the Akan people of Ghana, it's represented by a symbol, a bird, its feet facing forward, looking back at itself and holding in its beak what is sometimes an egg, sometimes a seed. It is not wrong to go back from where we came from. They tell you go back and fetch it. It is only through going back to fetch it that we're able to inform the present in order to create the future. We know about the back doors. We know about the buses through danger. We know about the voices that trembled but did not stop singing. And yes, they did it for themselves, but ultimately, they did it for us. So thank you. Thank you to my great-grandmothers, the Matildas, the Julias, the Janes, who were the children of slaves or were slaves themselves. Thank you to my parents, the Lucille and Samuel. Thank you to every unnamed musician of survival who kept the beat when the night was long and the way was unseen. Beloved, the question is, how much capacity do you have? Each of us has our own measure of capacity, and it isn't comparable or comparable. Our capacities are unique to us. So stop looking at the other person, figuring out what they do, and look at yourself and what you will do. May we learn to listen. May we honor the beat. May we face the history. May we metabolize the blessing. May we practice armed love. May we descend the mountain unafraid. In 2025, Michelle Indigocello won the Grammy for the Best Alternative Jazz Album, No More Water, the Gospel of James Baldwin. In the song Love, she uses this quote by Baldwin from his seminal book, The Fire Next Time. Love takes off the mask that we fear we cannot live without and know we cannot live within. Baldwin goes on to say, I use the word love here not merely in the personal sense, but a state of being or a state of grace. So may we become together a living song of grace union, unscripted, embodied, truthful, and alive in the burning now. Ashe and amen.